Hi there. Welcome to Bible Slash Chat. Nick, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well.
I see we wore our matching black polos
I
today.
like it.
That's awkward.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, that's right. Also true. This is your first time to do a Bible Slash Chat.
It is.
Yeah, good to have you on the
Thanks for having me.
on the podcast. Good times.
Appreciate it.
At our church at FBC, you are on staff and you're doing a lot of biblical counseling for us, helping with the pastoral counseling stuff,
Yeah.
which has been a huge blessing for us.
Thanks.
And I thought maybe we could just chop it up a little bit about the idea of biblical counseling in a local church. And that topic can get real broad. Like, oh, should I go out and seek outside counseling? Where do I go for that?
Yeah.
But I thought maybe if we just talked just initially about the idea of what it looks like to have biblical counseling in a local church, why we do it, why it's important.
Yeah.
Who should do it? What does it look like?
Yeah.
Those kinds of questions. Take it away.
Yeah, those are some great questions. And so maybe one of the things that'd be helpful for the people listening is to even just define what biblical counseling is real fast.
Yeah.
Because I think that there are just a lot of ideas out there. And one of the common ideas is that biblical counseling is really for the most difficult cases in the church where people can't figure life out and they've come to the end of their wits and the end of their abilities. And they're like, oh, no, I need counseling, which I would say in my counseling experience, I'm actually my biggest counselee.
Yeah, totally.
And it's something I'm working on every day.
Yeah.
And so I like to define biblical counseling, and I want to be careful too when I say I like to define biblical counseling, but something that's been helpful for me is just to help people to know that in counseling, we're trying to discover what's in our hearts. And so I like to summarize that as just thought patterns.
Yeah.
But that also includes the love that's in our heart for God or for people or things. Mm-hmm. And we're constantly trying to discover those non-biblical thought patterns that we have in our heart. Yeah. And replace those with biblical thought patterns that will lead to us producing biblical or God-honoring fruit through our gospel-centered love for Christ.
Okay. Yeah.
And so as those elements come together, it just helps us to see that counseling is really that process of trying to discern what's in my heart. Yeah. And make sure I'm conforming that to Christ through his word.
Yeah. Oh, that's super helpful. Okay, so that's something you're doing for yourself.
Yeah.
And you would say every Christian should do that.
I would say every Christian should do that.
And in many ways, like that's what the whole Bible is for, right?
Yeah.
And the whole New Testament is full of like examine yourself and all those things that are like self issues.
Yeah.
And then how does that functionally carry itself out in the local church? Like what's happening in that sense?
So you have a couple different aspects. One is that through the preaching of the word on Sunday, we're always receiving that input so that we can see what God is saying in his word. So that's providing for the church body a steady diet of those biblical thought patterns. Yeah. So then going a step further than that, we have our personal study where maybe we're reflecting on the sermon or reading the word, and we're just trying to absorb that and put that in us. Yeah. Then at FBC, we've got our care groups, which is another great opportunity for us to get together in smaller groups where we can look at the word, and then we're sharing our prayer requests and giving updates about accountability issues so that we have an opportunity to start speaking into each other's lives. Okay. So everybody I would say, just to answer the question really pointedly, everybody needs counseling. Yeah. In this aspect. Now, there's the general, like everyday counseling we're doing with our own hearts or in our, I call them counseling conversations. Yeah, totally. That we have with each other, even after church or at care group, wherever we're talking to people and expressing what's going on in our lives and reflecting on our thought patterns with the word. Yeah. Bringing our attention to Bible passages. That's the like informal counseling. Yeah. Then there's also opportunities where we think, man, this is just a really hard thing for me to think about. Yeah. Sometimes it has to do with sin and overcoming sin. Sometimes it has to do with just making big life decisions. Yeah. Or even responding to suffering in life. Yeah. Totally. Circumstances that are going on around us. And we're wondering, how do I respond to this well? And so we're trying to think through what's the biblical thought pattern I need. Yeah. To honor Christ in this situation. Totally. So then we might, in those more difficult situations, we might enter into a more formal counseling situation where you might meet with your care group leader, or you might meet one of the pastors or elders of the church and try to get more of a solid meeting in, or maybe a series of meetings that might even include some homework
Yeah.
And some follow-up so that people can really just grind through observing and analyzing what's in their own heart.
Totally. That's super helpful. So that third category, I think, is where most people, when we hear the term biblical counseling, we'd kind of shelve it in that third category where it's formal, it's multiple meetings, it has homework, and involves some of those things.
Yeah.
But you would say that entire stack of stuff is biblical counseling. It's actually happening in the church all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So when you're having conversations around the word, conversations about life, about difficulties, trauma, just fellowshipping together around Christ, that's all counseling in a sense.
Yeah.
And then, like, as those cases get more complex, require more help, then that's sort of going to like funnel upward toward like a more formal situation.
Certainly.
And then who, like, does that continue to be everybody in the church? Like, who does that formal counseling?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you asked who does the formal counseling.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, even from Romans 15:14, Paul is convinced that we're all full of goodness.
Yeah.
And to the extent that we're full of truth from the Bible, we have an opportunity to sharpen each other, like iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And so everybody can participate in a general counsel and encouragement and thought pattern exchange for our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
But then as you get more into those formal counseling situations, there's two aspects. The number one priority aspect is that really the pastors, the elders of the church, carry a certain and particular responsibility for the souls of the church members.
Okay.
So when we're practicing counseling, we're doing that formal counseling. We're always thinking, okay, how does this fit into the flow and the responsibility of the elders of the church?
So like Hebrews 13:17, they give an account for the souls of the people under them. So you have someone who's struggling with something where like the day-to-day counseling conversations aren't necessarily helping them through that issue. The elders have a responsibility to care for that person.
Correct.
And then that becomes like that formal counseling sort of gateway in a sense.
Yeah, or umbrella.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Gateway,
that's helpful.
When you say gateway, I kind of think of, okay, it has to go through the elders first.
It might not necessarily.
Might not. Yeah, more of an umbrella.
Yeah.
It's that oversight, and somebody might come to me and say, "Hey, I need help with this issue." And say, let's talk. And then talking with that person about that issue, I might think, okay, this isn't just like a basic discipleship issue.
Yeah,
you're really struggling in your heart, and the elders need to know that because the elders are responsible for the church.
Totally.
Body, so but then that doesn't necessarily mean that elders are the only ones who can practice that formal counseling within the church. And so other people can as well.
Yeah.
And there's kind of I just want to be careful with this because Romans 14:15 does say that, or 15:14 says, 15:14 says that we are able to encourage one another. We're able to teach one another.
Yeah.
But when our problems start to become more complex, it's helpful to have somebody who knows the word well. So that they can meet your need.
Yeah, totally.
So I like to tell people too, if the only thing that you know is Jesus loves me, this I know, or the Bible tells me so, be faithful to give that out.
Yeah, totally.
Like give that, just preach that, teach that. If that's the extent,
which is profound, by the way, but that's fine.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
But if you are a person who doesn't have more Bible knowledge to help somebody work through some of the difficulties of life, then it's okay to say that's beyond my ability to help you right now.
Yeah.
And so we like to find people that are trained in the word, skilled with the word.
Totally.
And then also just in the biblical principles for helping each other.
Yeah.
Like one of them would be Galatians 6:1.
Yeah.
Like you want, when you're in need of repair, you want to go to somebody who is going to be able to restore you in a spirit of gentleness.
Totally. Yeah.
And so we're glad that God provides people in the church who know his word well, and know how to apply those principles, who can listen well, so that as somebody's pouring out their heart, the person who's listening to them is really there to understand those thoughts and help that person really uncover what's in their heart, so that the person who's doing the counseling could say, hey, based on what you've said, I really think these are the biblical principles that describe your problem.
Yeah.
And if we're identifying those problems with the Bible, then we have a Bible solution, which is always Christ and the gospel first.
Yeah.
And then whatever commands he gives to us, for those specific situations in life, then we can joyfully seek to apply those principles to honor Christ.
Yeah, totally. That makes good sense. So that so that role doesn't have to be a pastor.
Correct.
But it would be someone who the pastors appoint to do that work.
Yeah.
Like in this case, it's you, which makes it easy. But like as at our church, you do a lot of the counseling, and that gets passed to you from the elders. We're saying, hey, Nick, would you please take care of this?
Yeah.
And that's something where you're like your training and background and that stuff. It's helpful, and then you're able to just sort of care for people in the church in that specific way.
Yeah. For sure.
But that's always from the top down.
Yeah.
Passing, like, essentially like distributing that authority.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. And that's where I like the umbrella illustration.
Yeah.
It's not really, we shouldn't think of counseling or biblical counseling as some kind of like separate ministry.
Yeah.
Or like just an independent program.
Yeah.
Which even I think touches on one of the things you were saying in the introduction here, is that you don't have to go outside of your local church to find biblical counseling.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that even starts to touch on some of the ideas that people have about therapy.
Yeah. Totally.
And like, if you're struggling in life and you think, okay, where am I going to get to help? The first place that you should go to help is your local church.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super helpful.
And for the care of your soul, the first place you should go is to your elders.
Yeah.
And the elders might say, hey, we've got Nick, or we've got some ladies, or we've got,
or an outside person, or whoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. The elders can make that decision.
For sure.
Sure. But to track up through the elders and then outward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, if I could take a minute, also just encourage our listeners to that we understand that everybody struggles at some time in life.
Yeah.
And so I hope that the church body would be encouraged to just come forward and speak up when either and anywhere on this spectrum. It might be just the Sunday after service, standing at the tables, drinking a cup of coffee conversation and saying, hey, I'm struggling in this small area. Can we talk about it?
Yeah.
Or as the problems get bigger, just come talk to your pastors.
Totally.
Talk to your elders.
Yeah.
Seek help. They're there. They love you. They care for you. And you don't have to, because part of them, maybe two aspects of that motivation of seeking help outside the church is one, I'm scared. I'm afraid that people will know who I really am.
Yeah, totally.
It's like, just lay that down
in
humility. Christ already knows and he loves you.
Yeah, totally.
So your pastors can love you too.
Yeah.
The biggest hurdle is actually overcome.
Yeah.
If Christ could know us and still love us.
Totally.
Then there's safety in our church body. And then number two, sometimes we think, oh man, who's really skilled and able to help me with my psychological problems?
Yeah.
But it's always a heart problem.
Yeah.
And God's word is the solution. So it just makes sense that you go first to your pastors and others.
Totally.
And there are some things that are complicated in life, and even like medical issues.
Oh yeah,
totally. If we bring up the question, like, does this have an organic cause? Then sure, like, let's go see a doctor. It's not a problem.
Yeah, 100%.
But still within the spiritual care that's provided by God through the elders that he appointed for the church.
Yeah, that's super helpful. So then, that's an interesting thing there. Like the motivational stuff there in the heart, you might think, well, I'm the only one who struggles with this. I feel so alone. Like, no, everyone else has their stuff together, and here I am, I'm a mess. I don't want to go talk to these guys. You would say, actually, it's the other way around. Everyone struggles. We all need counseling in the truest sense. And then therefore, like, feel free to come. It's actually good. And we're all aware we all struggle and sin and fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The other thing I hear sometimes is like, oh, you guys are too busy. I'll talk to somebody else.
Yeah.
What would your counsel be to someone who said that?
I hear that also.
Yeah.
And everybody's got 168 hours in the week. And I think at least I could speak for if I could speak for the elders and staffers at FBC,
totally.
Staffers at FBC, we love meeting with people.
Yeah.
It's a joy. Like,
totally.
There's probably a huge stack of admin tasks that you and I would easily burn up.
Yeah.
Because we'd rather spend time with people.
Yeah, totally.
So I hope that people listening would know in their hearts, like, we genuinely want to spend time with people. It's not a burden.
Yeah, totally.
And we can make time for people.
Yeah, we'll make it work.
Yeah.
It is funny. I think God gives certain people to do that, where, like, it's not only is it not a burden, it's like, oh, this is actually relieving to hear how you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, I want to know how you're doing. You know, it's actually helpful for my heart to hear that, as opposed to like, oh, you're too busy. I don't have time for this guy. Like, it's the other way around, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Certainly.
Super helpful, man. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If you have questions on this topic or any other topic, you can always email us at info@faithbibleoc.org. Thanks again, Nick.
You got it.